This NFL Week 13 Player Props edition of the NFL Propcast on Sports Gambling Podcast Network is brought to you by BetRivers. Claim your risk-free bet up to $500 over at sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetRivers. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/BetRivers. We're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets, the sports betting research platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit hofbets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off your first month and start making smarter bets today. Welcome, everyone, to the Propcast, part of the Sports Gambling Podcast Network. It is Friday, early evening on the East Coast, currently 7:26 p.m. on the East Coast, here to get into our NFL Week 13 player props. And joining me here to help me break it down, you guys know him as a voice on the NASCAR Gambling Podcast, the F1 Gambling Podcast, one of the hardest working men in the sports betting industry. It's my main man, Rod Villagomez. Rod, what's going on, brother? How you doing?
You know, I don't feel like it lately because I haven't been on the show the past couple of times. I've had other scheduling issues that have kept me off the show, so I kind of feel like I'm lagging, but it's good to be back. It's good to be ready to break down some props. I know we had a fantastic Thanksgiving weekend that I didn't get to partake in, but yeah, a lot of fun that we had, a lot of good props that we cashed on that entire weekend.
Well, the rumor was that you gave out an 11-1 winner for the Thanksgiving Day games and then decided to retire. I think that was a consensus from our fans, but
gotta leave it on a high note, don't you?
Yeah, there you go. But no, yeah, like you mentioned, it was a really good Thanksgiving week as far as our player props went. But not so great on Thursday night football this past week. For myself and Chris, at least, here, Rod. I think I went 0-4. I know Chris gave out some unders that in a game that's just absolutely turned into a shootout between the Seattle Seahawks and the Dallas Cowboys. And, we're going to have some of those dud weeks, but usually more times than not, we do bounce back on the Sunday schedule. So hopefully we're able to do that. But do you have any takeaways from the Thursday night football game between the Seahawks and the Cowboys?
This is why you can't call people hacks for going over. I'm telling you right now, it's just, you never know, especially with two teams like that, two high-powered teams in and of their own right. It was a shootout, and I enjoyed every second of it. There was so many highlights and so much good stuff to get down on. I was conflicted because as a 49ers fan, obviously I wanted Seattle to lose, but I also hate the Cowboys. So I really had, to me, the ideal situation would have been for both teams to have lost. Unfortunately, that can't happen. But yeah, I mean, listen, there was plenty of good stuff to go around, and I actually had, unfortunately, was 4 yards short of Geno Smith getting 10 rushing yards, and then even worse than that, I was 2 yards short of Tony Pollard having a first carry of at least 3.5 yards. So little frustrating on that aspect, but still a good day overall.
Yeah, I had the same sentiments as you. I had Geno Smith to go over on his rushing yards as well. That didn't get to the window, but lesson learned. You live and you learn, and then we try to carry the momentum into NFL Week 13 with some intriguing matchups. I know towards the end we'll get Rod's thoughts on the matchup of the week, including or not including, but involving his team against the Philadelphia Eagles. Maybe I'll say this, Rod, maybe just use your words cautiously because our boss is an Eagles fan, but not sure he'll listen to this episode because he is out in Vegas as they usually are for the VSiN show. So if you're watching live, make sure you guys tune into the VSiN show at 9 p.m. Pacific time. Kramer is back in the saddle. Hopefully I did a good job of filling in for him last week. It was an absolute blast being in the VSiN studio with Sean last week. Get out some winners. I think that was the most important part, but yeah, definitely check out the mothership on VSiN show every single Friday, 9 p.m. Pacific, whether it's on YouTube TV, or if you do have a VSiN subscription, you should be able to watch them as well. Ron, let's just get right into it, man. NFL Week 13 player props for the Sunday games here. Why don't you lead us off?
All right, well, I'm going to start with Jared Goff in that Lions-Saints game. I'm going to go with his completions. I'm going to take Jared Goff, his completions over 23.5. Our friend over there on our friends at Bet Rivers have this at minus 118. You look at what actually the Lions have done overall, right? And so as far as pass attempts per game, they're 7th in the league, 36.8 pass attempts per game so far. That's a ton. That's for Washington has 40. They're the most. That gives you a little bit of preface there. 37.3 in the last 3 games. Last week, 44 pass attempts for the Lions. Absolutely just crazy. They're getting 38.6 away from home as well. Their completion rate's not bad, actually. They're 5th in the league at 25th or 25 completions per game. In the last 3, they're averaging 25 as well. Last week, 29 completions for Jared Goff. And look at what the Saints are actually doing overall. It's not bad, actually. The Saints, 32.5 attempts per game that they're allowing, which is actually not, it's within the top 10 of the least amount of attempts, but they are giving up 19.2 per game to completions. And look, we're only asking Jared Goff, who throws the ball like I just laid out a ton, to actually complete a lot of passes. Look back at what some of these quarterbacks have done. Josh Dobbs completed 23 of 34. That's only a half a completion shy. Gardner Minshew, 23 of 41, still a half yard shy. Baker Mayfield, 25 of 32. So the threshold is just about there. And I think a guy like Jared Goff is going to be able to get that one more completion to get him over the hump, to get him at least 23 or 24 completions in this game against the Saints.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, you mentioned it. He's been hooked on this number twice over the last 2 out of the last 3 weeks. But again, I think the important part, now when I'm looking at pass completions, is that are these quarterbacks getting enough volume to get those completions, right? I think Jared Goff goes to the top of that list as far as a quarterback that does throw the football. And again, like you mentioned, attempts have been there for him as well. Now going back to the Saints team, who last week against Desmond Ridder and the Falcons just laid an absolute egg. Now you have a Lions team coming off of a loss on Thanksgiving, needing a win to stay in control of that NFC North. I think they do show up in big way, and I think it has to be on the shoulders of Mr. Jared Goff this week. Rod, for my first player prop, I'll go with the quarterback here as well. And you know what? I don't know why the books haven't adjusted to it, and I'm glad that they haven't. And it's only going to work in our favor. That's going to be Sam Howell on his pass attempts to go over 38.5. Now, this one is a little bit juiced around minus 130. So if you do find a 39.5, I'm very comfortable with that as well. But number one, Sam Howell leads the league in passing yards, total passing yards this season. If I would have told you that we were entering week 13 and the Washington Commanders quarterback Sam Howell was leading the league in passing yards, you would have probably told me to go get myself drug checked. But here we are. He has 3,339 passing yards. But more importantly, you take a look at the pass attempts: 44 on Thanksgiving Day against Dallas, 45 against the Giants, 44 against the Seahawks, 45 against the Patriots, 52 against the Philadelphia Eagles, 42 against the Giants again. He's had a couple more games earlier in the season where he had 51 against the Bears, 41 against the Eagles, 39 against the Broncos. So I think in this game, if we're looking at a game script wise, that they're going up against the Dolphins this week, right? One of the more prolific offense in the entire National Football League. And there's going to be a case where this spread right now is sitting at anywhere from 9 to 9.5 points. At some point, they should be trailing by a touchdown, if not double digits. And again, when you're playing from behind, you're going to get those pass attempts from Sam Howell. I was on his rushing yards last week against the Dallas Cowboys. That one didn't get there. I should have just stuck with my gut and stay with his pass attempts, because last week the books actually adjusted to it, because the week prior on the Propcast, I gave it out at 34.5. That one got home easily. And then last week the books adjusted it to 39.5. And that scared me off a little bit, but I shouldn't have gotten scared. But I'm going to go back to it this week here, Rod. Again, it's just a game script thing for me. They like throwing the football, especially with Eric Bieniemy as the offensive coordinator for this team. I'm going to go Sam Howell over 38.5 pass attempts in this game against the Miami Dolphins here, Rod.
Well, and again, that's one of those things where Miami's given up 34.4 per game, but 36 over the last 3, 38 last week alone. So listen, Sam Howell, we talked about it just a second ago, how Washington is attempting the most passes per game, 40.5 over the course of the entire season, 44, like you said last week. Over the last 3, even 44.3. He's slinging the ball all over the place. So yeah, this number's not safe at all anywhere close to 39, even 40.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully that he carries that streak of 40 plus pass attempts for a 7th straight week, does Sam Howell. All right, Rod, before we continue our player props here for this NFL Week 13, let me tell everyone about our presenting sponsor, and that is going to be Bet Rivers. And our player props are from Bet Rivers, and this is where you can get down is on Bet Rivers. And Bet Rivers is available in over 14 states, plus in Ontario, Canada as well. Bet Rivers has some of the best live betting markets in the space. Their betting menu is second to none, including a ton of props. Deposit and withdrawing is super easy on Bet Rivers. Sign up using our link to get a risk-free bet up to $500. Again, just go to sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betrivers. That's sportsgamblingpodcast.com/betrivers. If you have a problem gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Rod, take us over to player prop number 2, my friend. What do you got for this week?
Well, we said we were going to talk about it. There's no time like the future. We'll talk about it. The Niners-Eagles game. I'm going to take Christian McCaffrey, and I'm going to take his receiving yards. His receiving yards right now are set at 31.5 over there on Bet Rivers. I mean, what else can I really say about Christian McCaffrey that hasn't already been said this season, right? I mean, it's a matter of this guy is going to get his. Now, granted, I will tell you that the number is a little bit high given what he has been doing the last couple of weeks as far as receiving, right? He only had 25 against Seattle. He only had 25 against Tampa Bay. But before that, 47 against Jacksonville, 67 against Cincinnati, 51 against Minnesota. I think this is going to be a game on the level with what we saw on Thursday night, right? We're going to see the stars absolutely on display for both teams. I mean, they're both granted. I will say that both of the defenses are a little bit better than what we witnessed on Thursday night as well. But we are going to watch the stars do what they're paid to do, and that's dazzle the fans. So I think Christian McCaffrey is going to be one of the guys that Brock Purdy is going to lean on. Obviously, we know Brock Purdy loves to do it anyways because his high quarterback rating, his high completion rating, all lends itself to this. So I love this spot for him. James Cook last week against the Eagles, 57 receiving yards. Go back to the Commanders. Even Antonio Gibson had 28 against them. Breece Hall, 54 against the Eagles. These are running backs that are not necessarily on the same level as Christian McCaffrey. So if those guys can get this done, I'm pretty sure Christian McCaffrey can get this done. So give me Christian McCaffrey over 31.5 receiving yards, minus 113 from our friends over at Bet Rivers.
Yeah, I really like this play because we know that the Eagles have one of the better, if not the best, rush defenses in the entire league, right? And how do you get Christian McCaffrey involved? That's through the passing game. And I think that'll be something similar to what we saw Josh Allen do with James Cook last week, where he's going to, really rely on Christian McCaffrey, whether it's in the screen game, whether it's check down passes, and get the ball to McCaffrey that way. But like you mentioned it, right? Last week, James Cook, 75 receiving yards. We go back to the Commanders game. I think Brian Robinson had, above those guys, combined had 48 receiving yards. Breece Hall, 5 for 54. We go back to the beginning of the season, Ramondre Stevenson, 6 for 64. So I think for going into a hostile environment in Philadelphia, Brock Purdy, I think that Kyle Shanahan would put him in the right spots, and that's again finding Christian McCaffrey in those little short passing game or screen passes. I think definitely Christian McCaffrey can get this done. So 100% I agree about Christian McCaffrey here on over receiving yards here, Rod. For my next player prop, I am gonna go over to the game between. There's a couple things that I did like here. Let's go to the game between the Patriots and the Chargers. And I'm pretty sure nobody's going to be watching this game for obvious reasons because these teams are just not very good. But the one weakness this season for the Chargers has been their passing game. Their rushing defense. And I think that they have really given it up to the running back position. I'm looking at Ramondre Stevenson in this game here, Rod, to have a big day, whether it's rushing and receiving, or if you just want to go rushing. I'm gonna give out the rushing yards, but I don't hate the passing game. You know what? I'll go both because I feel like I was going through the box score for Ramondre Stevenson. He's also been involved in the passing game for the New England Patriots. And it is official that Bailey Zappi is going to get the start this week for the New England Patriots. So it seems like that possibly Mac Jones is done for the year as the starting quarterback and maybe his last start ever for the New England Patriots. But you take a look at what Ramondre Stevenson has done over the last 3 weeks. On the ground and in the passing game. So I'll just read off his total yards here quickly. 129 yards against the Commanders. He had 102 total yards against the Indianapolis Colts. And then last week against the Giants, he had 107 total yards in that game. Now you take a look at what running backs have been able to do against the Chargers. All throughout the season. So last week, the Ravens as the collective group, led by Ken Mitchell, 64 yards on the ground. He also had 36 through the air. Go back to the week prior. Dillon, 29 yards on the ground, also 32 receiving yards. We go back to week 10. Jahmyr Gibbs, 77 yards on the ground, 35 yards through the air. And that's the same game where David Montgomery, 12 rush attempts, 116 yards for David Montgomery on the ground. So more times than not this season, running backs have had a lot of success against this Chargers defense. And just to also put this into perspective of how consistently bad the Chargers rush defense has been. So on the season, they are allowing on the ground are the Chargers, let's see here, 110 rushing yards. But over the last 3 weeks, Rod, they are allowing 166.3 yards just on the ground alone. That's the third worst in the entire league. And also, I like the fact that Ramondre Stevenson is also involved in the passing game for this Patriots lack thereof offense. I'm trying to pull up the number of the rushing and receiving yards here for Ramondre Stevenson, because his rushing yards alone was at 62 and a half. So his rushing and receiving is at 90 and a half. So I think it's another game where he does get into triple digits here, whether it's through the air, whether it's through the ground. I think it's another big Ramondre Stevenson week here, Rod.
Well, I think it's funny that we both picked this game, but we kind of both picked different aspects of this game because I, like you, I think this game is going to be atrocious. I think that no one, like you said, is probably going to end up watching it. And I also think that now with Zappi in there, this is going to be even uglier, which is why I'm giving the Chargers the opportunity to pick him off. And I'm choosing Asante Samuel. I don't know if I'm just doing this because I'm riding the high of actually calling an interception on Thanksgiving or not. But listen, for me, I like the number on this one. This is at plus 585 for Asante Samuel. I'm okay if you want Derwin James too. He's in and around that same sort of price. I mean, both of these guys, I think, have an opportunity. And I understand that it's been a very long time since Asante Samuel has had an interception. The last time he had one was against Kansas City back in October. So it's been a few games since he's had an interception. But look, man, all these Patriots quarterbacks do is throw interceptions. I mean, Zapke he's thrown 2 over the last 2 games, right? Mac Jones, 14 on the season, or 12 on the season rather, and 2 in his last outing. So there's one thing that you can be sure of is that a Patriots quarterback is going to throw an interception. And while the Chargers have not been ball hawking very often this season, in fact, they really don't have as a team a lot of interceptions in and of their own right. Samuel has the most with 2, and then everybody else after that's kind of scattered across 1 here and there. So again, it's not as if the Chargers defense has been picking off too many people. But look, if you're going to gift wrap interceptions, then somebody's going to have to take it, right? So as a team, they only have 6 interceptions total this year. But like I said, Christmas is going to come early for these guys. One of them is probably going to end up picking off Zappi. So I'm putting my money on Asante Samuel because he is the veteran back, and right, that's a revenge game for him, isn't it? Asante Samuel did play with the Patriots for a half second, so
I believe so. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, I definitely think that he's probably in line to be the guy to get that interception. So give me Asante Samuel to pick off Zappy or whoever they end up throwing uh, in
Yeah.
in there.
Yeah, I saw a report that they'll have some packages for Malik Cunningham as well for the Patriots. But I mean, like you mentioned, back-to-back weeks, Zappy has thrown an interception. So, and that comes off of Rod 14 pass attempts last week against the Giants. He had one interception, and then against the Colts, he came in 7 attempts, had threw one interception. So if he gets into the realm of say, let's just say 20 to 22 to 25 pass attempts in this game, there's a great probability that he probably throws 2 or 3 picks here against his Chargers team. So, yeah, I think that at this price, I think that's a great call. That again, these struggling quarterbacks will probably throw one.
And let me just say, I know that there's somebody out there that's going to troll. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, that's his son. I'm thinking Asante Samuel, obviously the longest, but this is Asante Samuel Jr., not the actual Asante Samuel. So no, he did not play. So he'll be revenge for his dad. Let's put it that way.
Same blood, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like, I get it. I'm like, oh man, I screwed up. Trolls are going to come after me now.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he does has 2 interceptions this season. Does Asante Samuel Jr. And hopefully he makes it a third this week against the New England Patriots quarterbacks. All right, Rod, before we get over to our next player props, let me tell everyone about Prize Picks. Prize Picks is the most fun I've had winning up to 20 times X my money this football season because look, Prize Picks has some very generous lines and we've been able to take advantage of them. Plus, you also with basketball season going on, Rod, it's been a lot of fun. And with that basketball season here, you can now pick combo projections across the basketball and football from the special leagues. A league created specifically for combo projection that includes 2 or more players from different sports or leagues. For example, if you want to get down to LeBron and Mr. Travis Kelsey Swift at a combo of 10.5 3-pointers made or in receptions combined, you can do that over at Prize Picks in their special leagues tab. So if you also want to play alongside some of the Prize Picks favorite players like rapper Meek Mill and comedian Andrew Schultz, you can do that and find that in the community plays under the promo tab in the app to view entries from some of the biggest names in the Prize Picks community each and every single week. Prize Picks, a daily fantasy sports app. They even offer a reboot policy so that your entries stay in play even if one of your players gets injured. So, for football and basketball games, if you have a player who you have in your entry and they exit the game in the first half and they don't return in the second half, well, that player is rebooted. Price Picks is the only daily fantasy sports platform for an injury insurance policy. Plus, players players and stats that you're selecting, you can again go in there, pick the more or less on those projections for some of your favorite fantasy players, and put together an entry. And hopefully, you can cash in. Stay tuned. Me and Rod at the end of the episode, we'll put together our Prize Picks entry for the NFL Week 13 Sunday and Monday games. So hang on for that. So take advantage of going to prizepicks.com/SGPN, but make sure you use our promo code SGPN for a first deposit match of up to $100. Again, that's prizepicks.com/SGPN. Make sure you use our promo code SGPN. Prize Picks, daily fantasy sports made easy. And we're also brought to you by Hall of Fame Bets. Win bigger by betting smarter this NFL season with Hall of Fame Bets, a sports betting analytics platform for parlays, player props, and game lines. Research every NFL, NBA, and soccer bet with Circle stats and data. Enter any parlay idea into Hall of Fame Bet's revolutionary parlay optimizer to get hit rates broken down by leg, as well as an expected probability for the entire parlay. Sort our players by hit rate for any bet to learn which players are hot and which picks have value. Stop betting in the dark and join over 30,000 users researching with Hall of Fame Bets to craft more intelligent, data-driven parlays. Download the Hall of Fame Bets app or visit HOFBets.com and use promo code SGPN to get 50% off the first month today. Start researching, start winning with Hall of Fame Bets. All right, Rod, let's keep it rolling here, my man. I'll go over to player prop number 3. And I'm going to go with King Henry over 62.5 rushing yards. They're going up against the Colts this week. And knowing Derrick Henry, because number one, he's in the same division as my beloved Houston Texans. And this guy, when he rolls through the AFC South teams, he is absolutely destroying teams within this division. So against the Colts in his career, Rod, he has faced the Colts 15 times in his career. You know what? I'm going to trim that down to 13 games because there's 2 games in there where he had 0 attempts for 0 yards. He did play in that game. This was back, I believe, in his rookie year. And he had 1 attempt for 3 yards in another game in his rookie year. So in 13 games, Rod, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Against the Indianapolis Colts in 13 career games, how many rushing yards do you think Mr. King Henry has accumulated?
I'm going to go on 13 games for King Henry. I'm going to say 1,500 yards, 1,700 yards.
Close. 1330 is the exact number. You know what? Just for reference, because you said 1,500, he's probably close to 2,000 against my Texans. It's almost the same number, 1,380, but that's only in 12 games. So he still has 2 games against my Texans this season. So we'll make sure to mention that when he does play the Texans. But Rod, I know they played earlier this season. He did get 13 carries in that game. That only accumulated to 43 yards for Mr. King Henry. But in 6 of the last 8 career games against the Indianapolis Colts, and I know people are going to say, "Oh, the defenses are all different now, and the different personnel," but he has gone 100 or more receiving yards in rushing yards in 6 of those 8 last games against the Indianapolis Colts within the division. I know last week I believe I was on Derrick Henry as well. It took a little bit for him to get there. He had a couple of long rush attempts to get over this number. But I think that in the division game, when these players are familiar and teams are familiar with each other, I think they're really going to rely on King Henry here. So I thought this number was still a little bit conservative for King Henry. Derrick Henry, over 62.5 rushing yards in this game. I think they heavily rely on him. So if he's in that realm of, again, 18 to 20 carries in this game against the Indianapolis Colts, I'm going to go ahead and take that every day of the week. So I'll take Derrick Henry over 62.5 rushing yards here, Rod.
It's crazy because we saw, obviously, we've seen year in and year out with this guy that it is just lights out every single week. And we haven't seen that. I mean, he's come back down to earth this season a little bit. So I'm looking for maybe a kickstart or something to have him sort of get back to where we're used to seeing him, the 2,000 yard King Henry. We're not seeing that this season. So maybe it is going to take this late season against teams that he knows that he can whoop for him to get back on it. So I want to see, everybody wants to see King Henry do better. So let's hope it starts this week for you.
Yep, 100%. All right. That is 3 player props each from us. Rod, you have any more you want to give out? Any honorable mentions?
No, I think I'm good with what I've got. I've already screwed up who Asante Samuel is. So I think I'm going to cower in the corner before everybody comes at me for that.
I'll throw one more out here, and I think I was really going back and forth on this, and maybe you can help me out. But Buccaneers are allowing the most receptions and the most receiving yards to wide receivers this season. Now they do go up against the Carolina Panthers this week, and we know all the story about Frank Reich getting injured, not injured, he's probably injured. Maybe his heart is a little hurt because he got fired, but they let a lot of their offensive coordinators and coaches go as well. So maybe a hoorah moment for this Carolina Panthers team. But I was looking at either Adam Thielen, I know I've talked a lot about him on the Propcast this season, or Jonathan Mingo to go over on his receiving yards. And I was leaning more towards Jonathan Mingo in this game, just because I think that everybody will look at Adam Thielen in this game and just take the over on his receptions and over on his receiving yards. But Mingo right now is at 25.5 receiving yards in this game, and he has gotten involved week by week a little bit more in the offense for the Carolina Panthers. So just an example, last week against the Titans, he had 6. So back-to-back weeks, he's had 6 targets. Unfortunately, against the Cowboys, it didn't result in anything. It just resulted in 1 reception for 6 yards. But last week against the Titans, he had 4 receptions with 60 yards. So I think that may be something that we want to look at here this week, that if you want to ladder this up or just play him over 25.5 receiving yards. I talked about this on Steffi's show today, maybe laddering him up because there are some nice prices. So for him, just to repeat what he did last week of having 60 yards against the Titans. That's at 6-1 right now for Jonathan Mingo to have 60 receiving yards this week against the Panthers defense, like I mentioned, that is giving it up to the wide receiver position here, Rod. So any thoughts on that one?
How frustrating is Adam Thielen this season? Like,
Yeah.
right? Everybody expected big things. He did some pretty big things, and then all of a sudden he's fallen off the cliff. So and Mingo stepped up. So I think if anything, it would be wise to get him more involved. Look, the Carolina Panthers know whatever they were doing was not working, obviously, and that's why there's no head coach anymore. That's why they've cleaned a little bit of a house. So if they can get more of these impactful players like Mingo's become involved, I think it's all the better for them. So yeah, I mean, a little more work means a little more receptions, means, you might as well start feeding some of these playmakers that you brought in to make this a better team, which they haven't so far.
I quickly just went through Adam Thielen's game log year by year over the last 3 years. Like you meant, as the season progresses, his production slowly decreases, and maybe the opportunities for some of the other guys, goes higher. So I think this Jonathan Mingo is in a great spot this week, and I think you should ladder this up to 60 plus receiving yards. That's currently at 6-1. So I think that's one more I wanted to throw out there. All right, Rod, let's get over to our touchdown scores for this week, man. What are you looking at?
So I'm sorry, I don't mean to pick on your Texans, but I think I'll pick on your Texans. I'm going to take Cortland Sutton. He's got an anytime touchdown of plus 108, but I'm actually liking his first touchdown as well at 8-1. The Texans have actually allowed the last 3 teams that they faced to score the first touchdown, which was the Jaguars, the Cardinals, and the Bengals, right? So that's a trend that I like there as well. And when you talk about who's scoring the first touchdown for the Broncos, it's been Cortland Sutton a couple of times. I mean, he hasn't done it like a ton of times, but he's done it twice, which, for all intents and purposes, that's kind of what you're looking for. Anyways, who else has done it? Well, Jaleel McLaughlin has done it as well 3 times. So if you want to maybe put a first touchdown on him as well, but Cortland Sutton scoring touchdowns, right? 8 touchdowns in 12 games so far this season. So big time for him. He's actually the one scoring the most touchdowns overall. So I think Cortland Sutton for an anytime for sure, right? Like I said, he's got 8 touchdowns. Might as well ride that one. But then I'll take his first, because if he's going to score first, if the Broncos are going to score first, I think it's going to be him. 8-1. I like that number for Sutton as a first touchdown scorer.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, he's a huge red zone target for this Denver Broncos team, and Texans, they give up at least a touchdown at minimum to the wide receiving group. Last week, I think Calvin Ridley found the end zone when they faced the Jacksonville Jaguars. The week prior, Rondale Moore scored the opening touchdown on a huge 48-yard pass from Kyler Murray. Cincinnati, I know that we talked about the Tyler Boyd situation, but I mean, they also gave it up to Jamar Chase in that game as well. So yeah, I'm not going to argue against Cortland Sutton scoring a touchdown, especially anytime he's at plus odds. You definitely got to take advantage of it. Couple guys I'm looking at here, Rod. Number one, I'll go with Jalen Waddle. I think this might be a Jalen Waddle game here for the Miami Dolphins going up against the Commanders. I think that, I know that Tyreek Hill is always going to be at a minus price to find the end zone. I mean, his number's at minus 150 right now. But Jalen Waddle, first touchdown, if you want to sprinkle on that, plus 750. But anytime touchdown right now, I do see at plus 115 for Jalen Waddle. I do like that. A couple other guys that I was looking at in the Cardinals and the Steelers game. I think the narrative hasn't been talked about. James Conner going up against his former team in the Steelers. I think he can find the end zone here, plus 140. I do like that as well. And then, anytime I do see King Henry at a plus price, it's a very, very small plus price, but it's still plus price at plus 105, or Derrick Henry. I will take that to the bank as well. So a couple guys there that I do like to find the end zone here this week. And then obviously, Christian McCaffrey at minus 225, but I think it might be a Debo game. I kind of like Debo to find the end zone, plus 140, plus 160 for him to find the end zone. I think that would be fun to get behind as well. All right, Rod, let's get into our best bets here for the NFL Week 13 player props. What do you got as your best bet?
Give me Christian McCaffrey. Give me the receiving yards over 31.5. And the fact that it's not even completely juiced out of its mind. Minus 113. Again, I know it's not as sexy as an 11-1, but I definitely think that if you're gonna give me 31.5, that low of a number, I'm gonna take whatever you give me, within reason, of course. But 113 is definitely within reason.
I mean, you can't give out 11-1 every single week, but we do our best here on the Propcast. But
This
yeah,
isn't NASCAR. That's all there is to it.
there you go. So yeah, this is the NASCAR where you get those big prices and cash in on those every single week. So yeah. All right, yeah, I like it, man. Like I mentioned, Christian McCaffrey, he's gonna have a big week. Hopefully for the San Francisco 49ers. I will go with Sam Howell on his pass attempts. I mean, that's something I just can't ignore. The guy's had at a minimum 40 pass attempts in 6 straight weeks for the Washington Commanders offense. And then you also take a look, they're going up against the Miami Dolphins this week. We know one of the more prolific offenses in the National Football League. I think they'll be trailing from behind at some point for this game. So I will go with Sam Howell on his pass attempts to go over in those or in that game. So those are our best bets. Rod, let's quickly put together our PrizePicks entry here. I did put in both of our best bets. So we're going to go Christian McCaffrey more than 32.5 receiving yards. That's currently currently the projection right now on PrizePicks. But I think that he gets into 40, 50 receiving yards. Sam Howell, I put in there as well. His pass attempts are at 39, and we'll go more on that. We have one more that we like here, Rod, that we want to put into our entry here.
How about, can we find Zappy interceptions?
Yeah, let's see if we can find it.
Because I mean, I don't think they're going to have the Asante Samuel Jr. Out there, so probably we'll have to give Zappy.
No Zappy yet.
No Zappy yet.
No.
Damn. All right. Well then, how about Goff completions?
Yeah,
more than 23.5. If that's the number.
Yeah, that is the number. Yeah, perfect. So we'll go Goff. More than 23.5 completions against the New Orleans Saints. And that $100 power play entry will get you $500.15. I don't know what the 15 cents is for, but hey, it's because I put in $100.03. All right, that $100 entry will get you $500. And if we cash in on that. So again, Christian McCaffrey, more than 32.5 receiving yards. Sam Howell, more than 39 pass attempts. And Jared Goff, more than 23.5 pass completions. Rod, your team heads into Philadelphia this week. Huge implications for for the number one seed in the NFC. How are you feeling about this game? And give us your prediction for that game.
It's going to be a very hard fought game. I will tell you that right now. I know the Eagles are not going to lay down. They're obviously mad that they're underdogs at home. They're not thrilled with that. The fan base is absolutely gunning for every San Francisco 49er out there. But I will say, I do think the Niners are favorites for a reason. This team, and I said it on Twitter the other day, I don't know that I've seen a 49ers team have this much fun in a while. And for me, that's the difference. This team is loaded with talent, and we know this, right? The difference, though, between the Brock Purdy 49ers and the Jimmy Garoppolo 49ers is that they're having fun. Like, this is a team that is not egocentric, and not to say that Jimmy was, but everybody was, it's a Jimmy Garoppolo, this chiseled man of a quarterback. Whereas it's like Brock Purdy, this is the guy you want to hang out with and play Halo all night with, or whatever the kids are playing nowadays. I don't know. But this is the guy you want to hang out with, right? And that's the feel of this team. So I think a team like that versus the pressure that the Eagles are putting on themselves to be, the top dogs of the NFC East or the NFC in general. I just think the Niners are more relaxed in how they're approaching this game versus the Eagles. It's the pressure's on the Eagles to win this game, right? Or to not really. It's the pressure's on the Eagles to not lose this game. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Where the Niners are like, we're playing with house money, man. We're 8-3. We thought we'd be a little bit better, but we're going to be good, right? So I'm expecting to see the Niners go out there, have some fun, and the Eagles just sort of have to defend their territory. So I still think the Niners win. I think it'll be a relatively close one. I'm thinking 28-21 in that vicinity, but the Niners still come out with a win.
Love it. I love it. Yeah, you know what, on our log dog in total for the NFL gambling podcast, for my dog, I put the Niners -6.5 as my dog. I really do think they come in and take care of business here. So -6.5, but that's around +150. So hopefully this is not my last show on the network if in case Sean sees that. But yeah, it should be a good one. Hopefully your Niners do pull it out. Um, um, and yeah, we'll have an interesting conversation next week as well. All right, that is going to do it for this edition of the Propcast. Rod, any parting words for our wonderful listeners?
No, man, just good to be back again. Just good to be sitting in this seat talking props one more time with you. Hopefully, I can maneuver my schedule better to make this more common again because I definitely miss it.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, I know you got bigger fish to fry. That's a little bit more important, but yeah, obviously we do our best to work around each other's schedules. It's just really hard when we're all in 3 different time zones. If I don't know if our listeners know that, but it sometimes gets a little bit hard to collaborate. And some weeks, Rod's off. I know Chris had some plans here tonight. But me and Chris recorded NBA earlier, so we do our best to accommodate each other and get some more importantly winners to our listeners here. So we'll be back next week for the Thursday night football game as usual. And also concluding, obviously, through the NFL season and obviously the playoffs right around the corner as well. But it's still a lot to be determined in the NFL. Still plenty of weeks left, and we're going to be here for all of it for the NFL season. Make sure to follow Rod on Twitter/X at RJ Villagomez. You can follow me on Twitter at SportsNerd824. Till then, good luck with your bets this weekend. Let's break these books off and let it ride.